Hey everybody, Rabbi Abe here. Today I'm going to reveal secrets about the tree of life, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the sin of Adam. What was it actually? Hint, nothing to do with an apple. And what is the Kabbalah and why you probably shouldn't be studying it. So let's get started. So the Kabbalah, or the wisdom of Kabbalah, actually goes back many thousands of years. In fact, according to the texts of the Kabbalah, the wisdom itself existed before creation. Now, we may not understand that, but in written form, it began even with Adam, the biblical Adam, then, of course, progressed with Abraham, the patriarch, who wrote the first known book of Kabbalah, which included all kinds of secrets of astrology, how to control the constellations rather than to be ruled by them. Then there was the Zohar about 2,000 years ago, and many generations of great Kabbalists who revealed many, many secrets about the world, the universe, but most of all, and most importantly, about us, about how we function, about how our mind functions, how our psyche functions, and most important of all, how our desires function and how we can use them to our best possible advantage. And that is why the study is called Kabbalah. Why? Because Kabbalah in Hebrew means receiving. So this entire study is actually about the art of receiving. What do you mean receive? What is it that we all want? Do we all want the same things? No. And yes, we actually do want the same things. Overall, we all want to be fulfilled. Now, if you really think about it, the root issue of any problem, any lack, or any chaos in life is only one thing. It's a lack of some sort, a lack. Whether it's a lack of health, lack of peace of mind, lack of money, lack of love, lack of harmony between people. But that's the root. The root is a lack. Think about it. If we are all absolutely fulfilled, there's no war, there's no poverty, there's no illness. But who would dream of a utopia like that? Well, the ancient Kabbalists did. And they also told us that at some point at a given time in humanity, this would actually come about, but not after some pretty difficult chaos, okay? And perhaps wars, and perhaps, I don't want to go into that level of the discussion at this moment. So why wouldn't you study Kabbalah? Or why shouldn't you study Kabbalah, as I'm saying in this video? Well, you might upset certain people, okay? In fact, many years ago, I was talking to a lot of people about Kabbalah, and it was very strange, the reactions that I got. In fact, Kabbalah today is not specifically, it's not Jewish and it's not Judaic. True, the Jews received the responsibility over the wisdom, but it was meant to be shared with all the peoples of the world. It's an ancient wisdom. It precedes religion. You should understand. We should all understand. Adam had no religion. Abraham also had no religion, even though he lived a certain spiritual lifestyle, but he lived before the Bible, a long time before the Bible. And if the Bible is the source of, the major religions of the world, then Abraham certainly, wasn't a religious person in the sense of an organized religion. Yet he wrote the first known book of, not the first known book of the Kabbalah, but one of the first, over 35 centuries ago. It was called the Book of Formation, Sefer Yetzirah. And there's all kinds of secrets about astrology, the universe, importantly, how to control astrology. Not how astrology controls us, but rather the understanding of the astrology in order to be able to control it. I'll probably give you more about that in the next upcoming video about astrology in general. And so this wisdom existed a long time ago before religion. So while you do not need to be, certainly don't need to be Jewish to study the Kabbalah, if you would choose to study the Kabbalah after this video, But if you happen to be Jewish, my personal opinion is you can't really be practicing Judaism in the way it was intended to be without learning Kabbalah. And actually, the Kabbalists do bear that out, and they, in fact, say that, specifically in the writings of Rabbi Isaac Luria. But again, probably for another video. So, why shouldn't you be studying Kabbalah? Well, I begin to tell you, years ago, for whatever reason, and I was talking to many people about studying Kabbalah, for a lot of people, it was like, when you said the word Kabbalah, it was like, oh, ah! You know, they would freak out. And I always wondered why. But, you know, through this particular teaching, I began to understand why. And there is a certain segment of the population still today who will not be able to study this wisdom, will not be able to improve their life with it. Again, it's a universal teaching. It's not, you know, a belief system, do this and do that. No. Okay, so please don't make that mistake or have that assumption. But I will give you an insight as to what it is. And again, as I said in the beginning, I will reveal the secrets of what the tree of life is really all about and what the tree of knowledge of good and evil is all about. And if we understand that, we can already begin to make our life better. I'm going to read to you a few verses. It's in Hebrew. I will translate. It was the language of the Kabbalists, Rabbi Isaac Luria and his student, Rabbi Chaim Vital. He lived about almost 500 years ago or so, and he wants to tell us about the secret of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He says this, הנה נתפאר במקום אחר הזה, כי עוון אדם הראשון בעץ הדעת טוב ורע, הוא שלא בחר להתעסק בעץ החיים. Says something unbelievable. He says, I'm going to tell you what the sin of Adam actually was. And what was it? It was that Adam, the first man, Adam, didn't want to connect to the tree of life. He didn't choose to connect himself or to be busy. You know, to be busy, it's a term, it's a spiritual term. In other words, to make that a part of his life, he didn't want to be busy with the tree of life. והוא עצמו עוון הערב רע, ואומרים למשה, דבר אתה עמנו נשמע בעץ הדעת טוב ורע, ואל ידבר עמנו אלוהים פן נמות בסתרי תורה. Huge secret. It says that it was the same transgression or sin, if you will, as the mixed multitude. Now you have to know some of the Bible stories. Don't get stuck in the stories because it's a completely coded message. But the story tells us that there was a mixed multitude, different people who came along with Moses out of Egypt, and they were kind of troublemakers and they were complaining all the time and so on and so forth. So at the time of Revelation, again, this story, another story of the Revelation at Mount Sinai, they heard the first utterance. Oh, I'm sorry. For those of you who don't understand, it's not called a commandment. It was the first commandment. Nowhere does it say commandment. Another discussion. So when the first one came out, this mixed multitude said to Moses, no. Almost like the reaction to Kabbalah. No, Moses, don't let God talk to us anymore. You talk to us and let us receive from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Very strange. I mean, what are they saying? In other words, what they were in effect saying is, we are afraid to connect to the tree of life because we might die. That's what it says. Because we might die. So Moses, you talk to us. We don't want to hear from God. You talk to us so we can receive from the level of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And that'll be okay. I mean, what on earth is it talking about over here? What is it saying? And the secret of what the Kabbalists want to reveal to us over here is actually the secret of our lives. It is the difference between what we might call a spiritual person today, but a truly spiritual person. Not a spiritual with an agenda, not because I'm looking for a high in life, No, but I really want to be connected. I want to be connected to the source of things. I want to be connected to truly better. I'm willing to do spiritual work. I want to make that connection, whatever it is, whatever it means. There are people like that in life, and there are people who don't, which is fine. What is it talking about? So it says, when it says over here that Adam chose to be connected to the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and he chose not to be busy with the tree of life. What does it mean in Adam? And what does it mean for us? So we know the story of Adam goes a little deeper than what it says in the written text of the Bible. But Adam and Eve became involved in a specific type of sexual behavior. In other words, not something unusual necessary, but it wasn't exactly the way they were supposed to connect with each other, let me say. In other words, they had the relationship with each other, but they were supposed to wait to a certain time where there would be no negativity flying around, and their connection would have been absolutely pure, without the interference of negativity. And that's what the Creator wanted for them. Not that they were not supposed to connect with each other, as some might say, as the original sin. According to the Kabbalah, this sin or this activity that they did was a lower level when it could have been a much higher level. What does that mean? When we do things with pure intent or purpose, we connect to higher spiritual levels. When we are selfish in our connections, whatever it is, if we're selfish in eating, if we're selfish in whatever, material pleasures. In other words, if it's only for me and I don't care about anybody else, then actually those things will be short-lived. And they always are. Even sex, when it's selfish, and, careful with the comments in the comment section, because I'm, do my best to read all of them. But, it's about rolling over and going to sleep. It's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be such a level of connection, which is what it was originally for Adam and Eve, where the entire world, where all the cosmos, where all the animals, the entire world felt the pleasure. It was an internal pleasure, not pleasure of an organ, but it was pleasure that we can't even imagine. It was internal. It was a soul pleasure, not merely a physical pleasure. It was a very high level of connection. What happened? Unfortunately, they got involved. They got stuck. They got stuck in the physical. They got stuck in the 1%. They got stuck in what is called the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now, what's the problem with the tree of knowledge and good and evil? I mean, we enjoy ourselves. We have a good time. Well, unfortunately, the good times that we have and the pleasures that we receive, I don't know, I would say probably, 90 to 95% of whatever fulfillment or good we receive in our life, we don't get to keep it. Pleasures in life tend to start high and find their way down, eventually. So I think, if I only had this will make me happy. And then we found out that it doesn't. It's great in the beginning, and then it kind of, winds. A lot of things in life are like that. Maybe most things are like that. Not everything is like that. Some things actually get better, and that's what it's supposed to do. Imagine if all the things that we receive in our life, not only we receive pleasure and good feeling, initially, but it would get better and better and better and not go away. Like the good wine, with time it gets better and better and better. Some relationships are like that, but unfortunately the divorce rate is so high that most relationships are not like that. Why aren't they like that? Because at whatever level we connected again, it's just a term to describe consciousness, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The tree of knowledge of good and evil basically means it's good when you start off. And when you end up bad, meaning in a state of lack. And for some, the lack, grows. Lack grows because when this didn't make me happy, I try something else. And when this doesn't make me happy, I try something else. And eventually, some people can't find the happiness. I know lots of successful people that can't find happiness, even with the money that they have, but you really can't buy happiness. Oh, you can certainly buy a lot of distractions and try to be happy through, physical material things, but it's not a rule, right? It's not a given that you can buy your happiness. And so, and I know a lot of people who don't have as much money, but are far happier and more fulfilled and more at peace and so on. So again, it's not a rule or anything, but that's been my experience. That's what I've seen. Well, what is the Kabbalah saying? The Kabbalists are saying that if you want to be happy, the beginning of happiness, are you ready, is learning how to not limit by the external, by feelings and external pleasures, but to go deeper to connect with the internal. Now that has a lot of ramifications. External is called tree of knowledge of good and evil. Okay, that's one level of understanding. So it's like this: good, evil, highs, lows. Today is good, tomorrow's terrible, right? Ups and downs in life. That's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. What's the tree of life? A tree of life is like this. It's balanced and it goes up, maybe gradually. It's not sudden. It's building. It's gradual. It's gratifying. It's peaceful. We're not, receiving is not highs and lows. It's the art of understanding how to truly receive and how to shift our consciousness to one of receiving. And that is the secret of Kabbalah. Why? Remember, what did I say Kabbalah means? Receiving. Kabbalah, lekabel, to receive. It's teaching us how to alter our consciousness to one of receiving. Receiving that will fulfill us, not getting that gives us highs, but with every high, there's a low. So there's a big difference. Now, why shouldn't you learn Kabbalah? Well, a lot of people really don't want to give up the highs in life. And that's the prerogative of everybody, because it's not all at once. But you know what? Sometimes letting go of something which is really not good for you might feel like death. You ever been in a relationship where it's not good for you, but you don't want to let go. You want to let go. And you don't understand how to let go. In fact, to let go might feel like death. It's not good for you. This habit is not good for you. This addiction, maybe it's not good for you. But to let it go might feel very difficult. What did the mixed multitude tell Moses? Moses, no, we don't want to talk to God because we might die. What does God mean? What does God mean over here? Don't let us listen to the pure truth, because the pure truth might push us to do things we don't want to do. Yes, they're the best things for us. Yes, they'll fulfill our spirit and everything else. When your spirit is fulfilled, you're fulfilled, but you're truly fulfilled, not just temporary gratification. Sometimes that's great, but long term it's not, because we don't end up to be happy people. That's what the mixed multitude was saying. That was the sin of Adam, of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He didn't choose right. He didn't choose well for himself. He chose to be connected to the external. And when you're connected to the external, you also don't know why things happen to you in your life. You don't know why you had a fight with this person. You only look at the surface. You don't look deeper internally. You may not look at what the message was. True spirituality is not always a comfortable thing. However, the net results are extremely comfortable. In life, we have a choice, okay? And I'll end with this, and this is very important. We can either go for short-term comfort, but short-term comfort, 99% of the time, leads to long-term discomfort. The other option is short-term discomfort, doing the thing which may be difficult for you to do, but it will lead you to long-term comfort and better. Which do we choose? When I began to study Kabbalah in 1987, I understood this choice. It would have been easier maybe to do other things. I'd make other choices in relationships, make other choices in, what I choose that, as my fulfillments, as what I like in life. I used to be a commercial pilot. That was a passion of mine. When I began to learn Kabbalah, it was like, oh my God, where have you been all my life? Gave me all the answers to the questions that I had. So again, not without work, not without study, not without learning, but was it worth it? Absolutely worth it. 1,000, 100,000 times. Because there's nothing more gratifying than understanding the mechanism of life and understanding why things happen to you in your life and understanding and having the peace of mind to know how to really receive, or why you're not receiving, or why something is not the way you feel it should be. But at least you can understand it, and then you can have more control. Because when you get it, now you have an opportunity to take charge instead of being a victim. Nobody wants to be a victim. But sometimes that's also the easy way out. Short-term comfort, long-term discomfort, right? For victim, things don't really change. To change them, we need to take control. So true, while studying Kabbalah might not be for everybody. No, it might not be. I'm not here to say that it's for everybody. But for me, it was absolutely the game changer. The game changer. So that's the truth of Kabbalah. It's a study which shows us how to receive in our life at any level, physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's all about receiving. Lack brings chaos. Proper receiving brings peace of mind and fulfillment. That's what I got for you in this video. Be blessed. And I'll see you very soon on the next video. All the best.